Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, we are from group 10. Here we want to present our PowerPoint on title Sounds and Shapes. Introduction. Phonology is the area of linguistics that is concerned with sound regularities in language, what sounds exist in a language, how those sounds combine with each other into syllables and words, and how the prosody, stress, accent, tone, and so on of language works. Phonology interacts with morphology in a number of ways. Morphemes may have two or more different phonological forms whose appearance may be completely or at least partly predictable. Some phonological rules apply. Morphemes display different phonological behaviors depending on whether they are native to their language or borrowed into it from some other language. Allomorphs. Allomorphs are phonologically distinct variants of the same morpheme. By phonologically distinct, we mean that they have similar but not identical sounds. And when we say that they are variants of meaning or function of the same morpheme, we mean that these slightly different sounding sets of forms share the same meaning or function. For example, the negative prefix in English is often pronounced in us in trouble, but it is also sometimes pronounced I'm or ill, impossible, illegal, as English spelling shows, since all of these forms still mean negative. And they all attach to adjectives in the same way. We say that they are allomorph of the negative prefix. Another example you've already seen is the regular past tense in English. Although the regular past tense in English is always spelled ed, it is sometimes pronounced t, baked, sometimes d, baked, sometimes ed, waited. I still all three phonological variants still designate the past tense. Similarly, the plural morpheme in Turkish sometimes appears as lar and sometimes as lir. So Turkish has two allomorphs of the plural morphemes. The various allomorphs of the negative prefix in English are quite regular, in the sense that we can predict exactly where each variant will occur. While allomorph occurs depend on the initial sounds of the base word. This allomorphy is the result of a process called assimilation. Generally speaking, assimilation occurs when sounds come to be more like each other in terms of some aspect of their pronunciation. Phonologists use different forms of nation to express the above rule in a more succinct fashion, but we'll restrict ourselves to informal statements of rules here. This sort of assimilation, called nasal assimilation, is not unusual in the language of the world. And another example of predictable form of allomorphy is the formation of the regular past tense in English. We look at the past tense in English in the context of figuring out what the mental lexicon looks like. We can now go into its formation in somewhat more detail. A verb whose past tense is pronounced t, slap, love, unearth, kiss, wish, watch, walk. B. Verbs whose past tense is pronounced d, rub, wave, bath, buzz, judge, snake, frame, can, bang, lasso, shimmy. The regular past tense in English illustrates a different sort of assimilation called voicing assimilation, where sounds become voiced or voiceless depending on the voicing of neighboring sounds. Dissimilation is a phonological process which makes sounds less like each other. A schwa separates the t or d of the past tense from the matching consonant at the end of the verb. Again, this makes perfect sense phonetically. If the t or d allomorph were used, it would be indistinguishable from the final consonant of the verb root. Phonologists typically assume that the underlying form of a morpheme must be something from which all of the other allomorphs can be derived using the simplest possible set of rules. And if we assume that the underlying form of the regular past tense is d, we need only two simple rules to derive the other allomorphs. Example of regular and predictable allomorphy comes from Turkish as we've seen. In Turkish, virtually every morpheme derivationally and inflectionally alike has more than one allomorph. The reason for this is that Turkish displays a process of vowel harmony whereby all non-high vowels in a word have to agree in vagueness and all high vowels in both vagueness and roundness. We might ask in this case what the underlying form of these affixes is, and here it's a bit difficult to pick one of the existing allomorphs as our choice. For example, neither plural allomorph lar nor lar has a wider distribution than the other. And then the other one possibility that we might consider then is that the mental representation of the plural morpheme in Turkish is something like what we find in Turkish plural morpheme.
Unpredictable or partially predictable allomorphy. Some allomorphy is regular enough to be captured by phonological rules, but not all allomorph is regular. Take for example past tense of verbs in English. We have already looked at the regular past tense. Every native speaker or student of English knows that there are also quite a few verbs that down from the past tense by adding ed. Lexical strata. Phonological effects do not apply uniformly across the entire lexicon of the language, but instead are confined to a subset of the lexicon. Indeed, some languages have two or more different layers to their lexicon which behave differently in terms of phonological effects.
Guys, if there's no question, I think that's all. Thank you so much for your car attention and participation tonight. Leslie will say you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.